And I want to work with coachable people that when you show them the path of this is what you need to do, I want to make sure that the motivation is there and they're actually going to follow through. Because I don't want to be working with people that don't take action and don't follow through. Because really, what's the point? They'd be better off to spend their money somewhere else on a trip or vacation or something like that. So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, one thing I've noticed, because I do follow you on Instagram, and you do put out a lot of content. Sometimes it's just personal stuff about your kids. Sometimes you share your experiences with current projects, real estate projects that you're working on. But very rarely have I seen you do anything like, hey, are you guys want my coaching program? Reach out to me. Or not to say that that's wrong, but there are some people that I follow where almost every single day they're promoting something.
Yes.
And you feel like your approach works well. You still get quite a few people that reach out to you, and I'm assuming that's because of word of mouth and the power of attraction rather than trying to pull people to, or trying to push something onto people. Is that right?
Definitely. And to work with me, it's a significant investment. And for me, I'm happy with how things have gone. It's been a multiple 6-figure venture over the past couple of years, many times over. And I am going to be putting together a digital program for people that want more of an entry level, like, hey, just I want to learn the fundamentals, or I want to get into my first deal. So I do believe there's a big need for that. And I'll probably mention that one a little bit more, just because maybe it needs to reach out to some more people and stuff like that. But for me, I've never wanted to be that needy, desperate person. Just provide as much value that you can. And it seems counterintuitive, like you got to give, and then eventually these things start to come back to you. But it really is true. And if people can't realize that there's roots growing underground, it's not easy to start something like that or to be, a high level coach, then they're probably in the wrong industry.
Right. Cool. Okay. So we touched on this a little bit. I want to ask you about Stefan. What was your relationship with him? And also you said that you've worked with him in the past and he's mentored you and with writing a book and whatnot. Can you kind of share what that experience was like?
Sure. So, I met Stefan about, around 4 years ago. We actually had similar mentors in common. So we were actually at a mastermind together. It was like a last minute thing. I think our mentor at the time, who was out in BC, had an extra spot in his schedule and wanted to do something fun. So he said, look, mastermind in 2 weeks down in Florida. And who wouldn't want to get away down to Florida and talk about real estate or business or what have you, when we have some of the Canadian winters that we do up in Canada. So I said, hey, sign me up. The price point was very reasonable compared to his regular, consulting fee. So I went down, and I had no idea who was going to be there. I just knew I wasn't going to be one-on-one. It might be, a couple people in the room, and we can kind of cross-pollinate and learn from each other. And, there was Stefan, right? I think he was 28 or 29 at the time. He'd already written 2 books. I think he was working on his 3rd one. And just, seemed wise beyond his years at that age. And I think some of these iconic type people that end up either dropping out of college or university to pursue their dreams, they're just so brilliant. They have such a genius in them that just doing what we might feel like is on a high level, for them, it's just like they figure it out very quickly. I get it. Got the t-shirt. I'm here to influence the world. And that was Stefan's vision, was to really, change the world. And, I saw that I wanted to give back more to society. He'd been an author many times over. He said, look, there's 2 lives in the world. There's a life before being an author. There's a life after you're an author. And trust me, there's a big difference. And even just promoting my journey to getting the book finished, it's been a 2-year thing. I didn't believe I was going to be having extra kids in the process and scaling a business. Like, all these opportunities really started to come my way. It's amazing what happens when you are clear on what you want and you focus on it. I've in the second half of my real estate investing career, I've been doing more deals than ever. And it's all the work I've been doing, a decade ago has really come to fruition now, which is excellent. Plus the skill set and everything else is there. But, working with Stefan was great. He was definitely a very iconic person, very, very wise, and had a interesting and great way of coaching. And, people, I always say, like, hey, either you like the guy or you didn't. There wasn't really any in between. But for the people that were closest to them, they understood that he had a big heart. He wanted to see people succeed, and poured into them, really. So he did 20 years worth of work in 10 years, which probably wasn't healthy for him. And unfortunately, cancer got him. And but he's left a huge legacy. So it just goes to show that, content is something that is a legacy. So, go out, create as much as you can, because when your kids get older, they're still going to be able to find this stuff and pull it up. And that is going to be your legacy, what you've left for them.
Would you say that that's one of the biggest things you got from him? That content is your legacy?
Just, the importance of sharing the journey. So the importance of sharing the journey, how to be, if you ever look up the hero's journey is what we all go through when we're striving for bigger things. And it makes a lot of sense. And we've all gone through the hero's journey, including yourself. And, to be able to articulate that on a stage, I've had to follow this guy on a speaking stage before. It wasn't easy, because he's literally hired some of the best speaking coaches in North America. And then he helped to share that with me too. I've been on his podcast, right after, Robert Kiyosaki and just some of these other giants, right? So it's like, I'm glad that I've met some of those people. He always brought great people into his training rooms as well. And some of my best friends now are the people I've met through the events that he's put on in the past, and will still put on in the future. His office staff is not closing up shop. They're still living at his legacy. And I think that's very important. And if I can help them continue to live that out, or definitely relay the messages of things that he's taught me, that's very important too. But yeah, his biggest thing was just don't be afraid to share the journey. And that's something I tell all my students as well. If real estate's going to be your big dark secret, what's the point? I mean, you can't do much being a lone wolf, especially in today's age where, your network is so huge. We're back when I was growing up in high school and college, there used to be this Kevin Bacon factor, right? Where we're all kind of 7 levels of separation from Kevin Bacon, or from him to other actors or something like that, right? So, but now it's like, man, it's like 1 level or 2 levels of degrees of separation from almost anybody with some kind of a common interest. So it's just crazy how connected we are.
Right.
Yet we're kind of disconnected, especially in these times. So.
Well, that's awesome. I'm glad you were able to have that relationship and kind of learn from him. And before we move on to the next portion of the podcast, is there any do you have any messages or any main message you'd like to share?
Just in general with your audience, I think if you're listening to this podcast, you're definitely doing the right thing. I mean, you're educating yourself, you're filling yourself up with the knowledge and maybe some encouragement that you might need to take that first step or do your first deal or your 10th deal. And it's at the end of the day, I find sometimes people can get too paralyzed with just the analysis paralysis, and just like I'm a fact finder. I've literally taken personality tests, and I'm a fact finder, true. But I also want to make sure that I have systems in place. Hey, if the deal is good enough, if it checks all the boxes and the numbers make sense, you got to put the offer in. You got to pull the trigger. And lots of times you can make the deal even better by negotiating, different terms and whatnot. So you got to take some actions. Don't be afraid to actually put offers in. Make sure you have an escape clause. I mean, at the end of the day, deals just aren't going to be presented to you on a silver platter. I mean, you got to go out there and work and get them done. So, I see a lot of people that just absorb all this information, but they never take action. So don't be one of those chronic, information learners. You create your wealth by actually taking steps forward every single day. It doesn't have to be big, massive steps. Lots of times we look up to these social media guys and they're like, wow, I want to be like Gary Vee, or I want to be like, some of these big giants out there. But, hey, what's Gary Vee's message? My first tweet only had 6 likes. We got to start somewhere. All big things start small. So it's important.
Yeah. And one thing I will say, I